Picture this. You wake up. It's 100,000 years ago. You're somewhere in Africa. The sun is already hot. You stretch, you stand, you look around at the people in your group, and not a single one of them is wearing anything. Nobody is embarrassed. Nobody is cold. Nobody is late for work because they couldn't find their other shoe. And yet, at some point, something changed. At some point, a human being picked up a piece of animal skin and put it on their body on purpose, not because they stumbled into it, not because someone told them to, because they decided to. That decision eventually produced every coat, every dress, every suit, every pair of jeans, in every closet, in every home on this planet right now. So why did it happen? And when? And here's the question that actually matters. Why did it happen before anyone went anywhere cold? Because here's the thing, nobody tells you. The timeline doesn't work the way you think it does. The obvious answer is warmth. Humans moved out of Africa, hit cold climates, grabbed some animal skins, and kept going. Clean, logical, completely satisfying. Except the evidence says clothes showed up tens of thousands of years before humans migrated anywhere cold, which means warmth wasn't the beginning of this story. It was somewhere in the middle. Something else started it, something more human, something stranger. And the proof comes from the last place you'd ever think to look, lice. We're doing the lice now. Stay with me. Here's the biology you need. Humans have two distinct types of lice, head lice, which live in hair, and body lice, which live specifically in clothing, in the seams, in the folds, in the fabric. They are genetically separate populations. Body lice evolved from head lice at one specific moment in history. And here's why that matters more than almost anything else in this story. Body lice cannot survive on bare human skin. They need clothing. They need the warmth and shelter that fabric provides. So the exact moment body lice genetically split from head lice is essentially the moment humans started wearing clothes consistently enough to create an entirely new ecological niche for a parasite. Researchers mapped that genetic divergence. They ran the numbers. Body lice split from head lice somewhere between 83,000 and 170,000 years ago. Let that sit. A creature that has caused more elementary school panic than anything else in recorded history accidentally preserved the earliest evidence of human fashion. The lice were there. They adapted. They moved in. They became unintentionally the world's oldest fashion historians. That is either beautiful or deeply unsettling. Probably both, definitely both. So the clothes predate the cold migration by a significant margin. Which brings us back to the real question. What were they actually for first? Theory 1 is boring but probably true. Basic physical protection. Not from cold, from sun, from insects, from the sharp, scratching, biting reality of spending your entire life moving through tall grass and thorny scrubland over rocky ground. A basic wrap of animal hide between your skin and the environment reduces abrasion. It reduces insect bites. It reduces the small cuts that, without anything resembling modern wound care, could get infected and kill you within days. It's not glamorous. It's not philosophically interesting, but sometimes the boring answer is the right one. Theory 2 is where it gets genuinely interesting. Here's something worth sitting with. Our ancestors were using ochre, a red iron-rich pigment, for body decoration as far back as 200,000 years ago. That predates the lice evidence for clothing, which means we were painting ourselves before we were dressing ourselves. The impulse to decorate the body, to visually signal something about yourself to the people around you, is older than clothing itself. Now think about what happens when you add clothing to that impulse. The skin you're covering isn't neutral anymore. It's a surface, a canvas, a statement. Which hide are you wearing? How is it arranged? Did you kill what you're wearing, or did someone give it to you? Does it mark you as a hunter, a healer, a leader, someone to be respected, someone to be afraid of? You've just invented fashion, accidentally, around a campfire, somewhere in Africa, 150,000 years before anyone in Paris thought they were doing something new. Humans are obsessed with status, bone deep, compulsively, relentlessly obsessed with communicating rank and group identity. We do it with posture, with voice, with hairstyle, with tattoo, with every single choice we make about what to put on our bodies every single morning. The jump from painting your skin to wearing a specific hide in a specific way isn't a large cognitive leap. It's the same instinct, wearing a different expression. Pun intended. Now, here's the part of the story where things go from interesting to extraordinary. Around 50,000 years ago, something shifts in the archaeological record. Researchers start finding needles, not just pointed tools for punching holes. Actual needles with eyes bored through them, clearly designed for threading sinew or fiber and stitching pieces of material together with precision. The oldest confirmed needle with a proper eye was found in Denisova Cave in Siberia. It dates back approximately 50,000 years. It was made from the hollow bone of a bird, shaped, polished, refined to a fineness that is genuinely extraordinary. Think about what that object represents. Someone looked at a sliver of bird bone and envisioned a tool that didn't yet exist. They figured out how to drill a clean hole through the narrow end without splitting it. They threaded sinew through that hole and used it to join two pieces of material with a controlled, repeatable stitch. That is not survival instinct. That is engineering. That is design thinking. That is imagination applied to a practical problem in a way that produced a solution more elegant than the problem demanded. And that needle mattered in a way that is hard to overstate, because in Siberia, 50,000 years ago, in the depths of a glacial winter, a garment that merely draped over your body wasn't enough. A fitted garment, stitched closed, sealed at the wrists and neck, trapping warm air against the skin, was the difference between living until spring and not. The needle wasn't a luxury. It was survival technology so critical that the people who had it made it through winters that killed people who didn't. Here's something that usually gets dropped from this story because it complicates the tidy narrative. Neanderthals were making clothes too. Before they ever encountered modern humans, we have substantial evidence of Neanderthals systematically scraping hides, processing animal skins in patterns consistent with leather preparation, using specific stone tools designed for working leather. Their bodies also tell part of the story. Stockier frames, shorter limbs, different fat distribution, physiological adaptations to cold that only make sense if you're already dealing seriously with cold, already thinking about how to manage it. They were solving the same problem from a different branch of the family tree. And then there are the Denisovans, the third human lineage we only discovered in 2010 from a single finger bone found in that same Siberian cave. In the same archaeological layers as the needle, researchers found pierced and polished ornaments, objects that suggest symbolic thinking, decoration, care about appearance. A people we barely know existed were already thinking about what they wore and what it communicated. Multiple human species, different environments, similar conclusions, which raises a question that sounds almost philosophical. Is clothing a human thing specifically, or is it simply what any sufficiently intelligent, social, cold enough creature eventually figures out? Is it inevitable? We don't know, but the convergence is hard to dismiss. Now, here's the part of the story that genuinely changes how you see yourself. If clothing were purely practical, every culture across history would converge on the most thermally efficient solution for their climate and stay there. Same shapes, same function, total standardization. Done. That is not what happened. What happened is that humans immediately and universally made clothing mean something. In every culture we have records of, going back to the earliest archaeological evidence, clothing carries weight that goes far beyond function. Priests wore different things than warriors. Rulers wore things no one else was permitted to wear. The dead were buried in garments suited to their status and the journey ahead. Some of the oldest textile fragments ever found weren't just fabric. They were dyed in multiple colors. Someone, thousands of years ago, looked at a perfectly functional piece of woven material and thought, this needs to be a different color. Not because it would keep them warmer, because it would mean something different, because it would say something. We use clothing as language. We use it to broadcast identity, belonging, rank, grief, joy, danger, availability, sacredness, ordinariness. No other animal does this. Not with this level of intention, not with this level of complexity. And it started, as best we can tell, not in a tailor's shop, not in a fashion house, not in any civilization you've ever read about. It started on the African savanna between 100,000 and 200,000 years ago, when someone covered in red ochre picked up an animal skin and felt something click into place about who they were in relation to everyone watching. That's the real origin story. Not warmth, not cold, not necessity, identity. The oldest human obsession dressed up in animal hide. Whatever you're wearing right now, you made choices about it, conscious and unconscious ones, about fit, about color, about what it says about you to the people who will see you today. You are doing exactly what that person on the African savanna was doing 150,000 years ago, figuring out how to tell the world who you are without saying a word. The tools changed, the fabrics changed, the cultures and the contexts and the centuries changed. The impulse never did.